Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Kosky. Today we are jumping into some philosophy with Evan O'Hanlon. This is the second part of our two-part series with Evan. We really hope you enjoy. Cool. Ready to move on to the next part?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice one. Cheers. We've moved from cozy cup of tea into the beers. We got too warm from the oil heater. Now we're settling in for some lovely beer. The first part of the podcast is about your story, and the second part kind of shifts into your mentors, things to do with what you're most passionate about then and now, and then kind of like a bit of a philosophy and connectivity piece. It's like where we connect you with me and connect you with the next person and the last person. Kind of like brings us all together through the podcasting. The first thing I'd like to talk about is your coach, because a big part of why I started this was to do with mentors and how we sort of turn into these people that we admire and that we learn things from and that coach us. Wherever they come from, I've noticed throughout life you kind of have these different people you look up to and slowly change into in a weird way just through admiration.
I hope I don't turn into my coach, because she's a 60-something-year-old Ukrainian woman.
So I guess then the question is, did she have like a big impact on you and your training and your life in those moments?
Yeah, definitely. So I met my coach, Irina Divoskina. Irina, when I was 15, I think. About 15. And she was my coach until I was 36, 35. So like at least 20 years of my life, which when I quit, I was 35 years old. 20 is more than half your life that you've been working with the same person.
Yeah.
Right. And she's a very different coach to what a lot of athletics coaches are in Australia. And it just happens that her and I work very well together. I understand that I'm not for everybody, and I understand that she's not for everybody. But in that way, we worked really well together because we always had each other's back as well. We would back each other into an argument, and we looked out for each other. And we understood that from a very early point of working together. She had a very good big picture plan, which was, I've got this young kid. If I can look after him and keep him uninjured for the majority of the next 10, 15 years, then his peak will be at the 2016 Rio Paralympic Games. And that was always her structure of her training. She didn't want to push me too hard too early so that I didn't have any improvement later, and that we had the small things to work on. So she was always thinking, what's the biggest thing we can work on at the moment? Leave the small things for later, and eventually we'll get to them, which we did. And so in that sense, very different to a lot of Australian coaches, because she had a long-term plan. A lot of them don't. She understood the body very well because she has 10 years at university to be a coach in the Ukraine. So she studied molecular biology, I think it was first. She's probably laughing because that's wrong. But
10 years to be a coach.
Yeah, so she did molecular biology and a master's, I think, in that first, and then she went and did a master's in coaching. So yes, it's not 10 years to be a coach, but she has 10 years of university learning. Whereas a lot of the Australian coaches in athletics, especially, well, in general, coaching isn't a university degree in Australia, but in athletics, it's a 2-day course. So very different approach, very informed approach, because what they learn at university is well beyond what a lot of the radical things that people that coaches come up with these days are just rehashing of Eastern Bloc, what the Eastern Bloc has known and researched a long time ago. I remember walking into her office one day before training, and she was scribbling on a piece of paper, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm going to mark out for you on a 200-meter run where your feet strike should be." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, the Soviet Union did research on this, and there's a calculation as to your height, your leg length, and everything, and you can I can mark on the track how long each strike should be, not just on the straight, but also on the bend. And the bend is like, I guess people think a lot that athletics is just running fast, but the bend is actually a very technical. There's an approach, even in the straight. There's a technical approach to how you run that straight.
Oh, really?
And how much effort you're putting in where and everything. But when you add the bend in, much like we were talking earlier about with bobsled, you have the centrifugal force acting on your body as you come around the corner. And while it's way less at 11 meters a second or 30 kilometers an hour or whatever that equals, compared to the bobsled, which is 145 kilometers an hour at top speed, the centrifugal force there is like it's actual G-force. You're getting like, your body's under load. If you run the bend correctly, you get an advantage. And if you're able to increase the turnover speed as you exit the bend, you get about 3 steps which are almost free. Like they feel free. You're not putting in much effort to still move at 11 meters a second because the slingshot effect of you coming off the bend.
Oh, wow.
And so they've studied it all, and they can calculate which steps go where and how to run that bend in effectively 2 straights rather than just running. And she was doing that calculation, and that's the level of thought that went into her preparation of every one of my sessions. And I can guarantee you I would be half the athlete if I wasn't coached by my coach.
Does it change depending on the lane?
Yes. Yeah. Like each lane is obviously, the inside lane is sharper. And historically, you wanted to be in lanes 4 and 5. They're called the championship lanes because they are the most comfortable to run as a human. But Olympic events have been won from any lane. So it's possible to run fast anywhere. Lane 1 is pretty tough, but because it's sharper.
Yeah. Does it give people an advantage of the lanes?
Yes, I think so. Like, at least if it's not an actual physical advantage, it's a placebo effect. Because the fastest runners always get lane 4 and 5, especially in those 200, 400 events. They've changed the rules slightly from what I understand in the 100 so that not always the fastest guys will be in the center lanes, but generally in the past it's been the fastest 2 runners will be in the center, 4 and 5, and everyone will be staggered out from there so that 3 and 6 would be the next fastest, then 2 and 7, then 1 and 8. But and that's why the middle lanes are called the championship lanes. That's where everyone's looking, and that's where generally, if I was at training and I was to pick a lane, I would pick lane 4 or 5 because they're comfortable to run in.
Yeah. So it's just a bit more of an enjoyable bend for the body, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I guess the most impact would be on your legs doing that?
When you're coming around the corner, your ankles are in a bit of a weird position. Your body's also leant over. And athletes do, because we always run the same way around an athletics track.
Oh, yeah, true.
You can get a sore back.
Oh, from the exertion on one.
Because you're always bending one way. And it turns out that because I've got cerebral palsy on my left side, my left side, my inside leg is my weaker side, so it's kind of better for me to be running the way that we do because my right leg is on the outside. Oh. But that means that my left ankle, which hasn't got as much fine motor skill, and stability is on the inside where it might matter a bit more. So it's a toss-up.
Yeah, right. Does that mean that like you might have an advantage over like the opposite hemispheric athlete?
I could, but then also their inside ankle might be more stable and have a better strike under that like kind of crunched position. So
yeah,
it's I mean, run fast, turn left. It's not that hard, but yeah, there's an art and a science.
I'm sure. And so your coach, she was more of like a details orientated person with a long term plan.
Yes.
So that helped you to. Did she basically kind of like help you to see into the distance, kind of like see further than what you were currently looking and to understand it from a more lengthy perspective of what you could do?
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, it kind of takes the stress out of preparation because you don't feel like you need to do something fantastic that day. There's a plan in place. We both understood the plan, whether or not I was interested in knowing what the plan was. Half the time I just, tell me what to do on the day. I'm not stressed. I'm not going to be a coach. I don't want to understand it. But I know I trust that you know everything there is to know and as much as possible. And so knowing that she has those blocks laid out, she has a year plan, she has a 4-year plan, she knew where we were going to be for training camps a year and a half in advance and which hotel we were going to be at. She might even for those 4 years know where we might end up that we wanted to be for this month in Brazil, for example, but she won't know exactly what hotel we're going to be at, but at least a year out she'll start to have those details filled in.
Is that something that you took away from working with her?
I would like to think so, but I'm a pretty unorganized person, so probably not. But it does teach you to deal with the stress by planning.
Yeah.
Like when I get stressed, I start to try and break it down and figure out, okay, is there a plan? Like who's in charge? What's happening? Yeah.
Cool. What about, I guess, for you personally, people that are maybe your mentors, people who you've looked up to, people who you really admire, and maybe something that you've taken from them that you found to be quite important for your life?
Good question. I think, and I tell people this all the time, I was really lucky that I was born into a family where sport was just a part of your life. It wasn't an extra or something that I had to get into myself. It was just always there. I remember my dad was a coxswain. He was a international level coxswain for rowing, the small guy that sits in the back of the boat or the front of the boat sometimes and steers and tells them what to do. Basically a coach in the boat.
Yeah.
My mum was a national level rower as well, and a few of my sisters competed for Australia and that kind of thing. And so rowing was the family sport, but sport in general was part of life. And I never had to try hard to get into sport because Dad was coaching athletes. I remember growing up and you come home from school and there'll be one of the girls or guys that he's coaching turn up at this door and they're going for a run and he would go for a run with them as part of their fitness. So those kind of things blend, they form you as a child and you know that those things are important. The same way that for me now that I'm retired, I still try to stay in shape and go to the gym and keep fit because I know how important that was for me as a child, shaping my health for the rest of my life. I wanted to shape my own kids now.
Yeah.
And so never had to try. And then when I got to school, I was good enough that sport kind of fell into my lap, athletics specifically, but I played rugby union, I played soccer, I played everything.
Yeah. So your role models were kind of your family as well, the people around you that helped you essentially form how you were in your formative years just by seeing that they were athletic, going out, training, being engaged with sport.
Even just looking after your body, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Helped you to build those habits just by being kind of like in the environment of it.
They're the role models that got me, I guess, into sport. And then my coach, who we've already spoken about, would be one of the main role models in sport. But the other one to that would be Heath Francis, who was an arm amputee sprinter. He was, Irina, my coach's first athlete, when she arrived in Australia in 2004 or 2003, I think. And he was one of her first athletes. He was still with her for my first Paralympics in Beijing, and he hung on a little bit further than that, I think, until Common Games in 2010. So I got to train with him full time from when I left school in end of 2006 until he retired in 2010, and he taught me how to be a professional athlete. Like, take it seriously, turn up prepared, and do the session properly, whilst also what we would call having a good time, but what some other athletes would not say is enjoyable. There's athletes that enjoy going to training. They say, "Oh, I enjoy going to training." It's like, well, I would never say that I enjoyed going to training. I did it because I wanted to race, but it was work. But you make it enjoyable because of the outcomes.
Yeah. So were you like outcome focused? You like to see the progression? That was your main motivator?
Yeah. I train to race. I don't train so I can train.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for me now as a non-competing athlete, is when I go to the gym, what's my motivation?
Yeah.
Like I have a problem that I will go to the gym and still train like I'm in the best shape of my life and I'm 25 years old. And so I get pretty sore.
Busted up after.
Yeah. I come home and I'm like, oh my God, my legs are sore. And my wife goes, I don't feel any pity for you. You did it to yourself.
Yeah, right. Going down the path of mentors a little further, I've come to realize things that they're not always people. Sometimes they're moments or books, or which I guess indirectly is people, or maybe even like animals sometimes that inspire us and kind of force us to do things. For example, I've had a few books that I've read and have changed the entire direction of my life. And then, maybe like I had this dog once that I learned heaps from. Just her being was so inspirational, and like the things that she did in her life really encouraged me to go and chase after life as well. And I wonder if there's anything or one that is in your life that's, I guess, not a person that has inspired you to do what you do now.
Good question. I'm trying to think of someone that's not a person. A thing that's not a person, but it's hard. I would say in the same sense, because they're not a fully formed person, and often a little bit more animalistic in their approach to life, is kids. Because you start to try and think about why they would do, like my own kids, I'm saying.
Yeah.
You watch them all the time and you see them, how they react to things, and you go, that's how I would react if I didn't have this piece of information, or I hadn't learnt this. And you start to understand the more instinctive drives in yourself and what you've passed on, kind of a little bit. But also, like, my kids forced me and my wife, not in a bad way, in a great way, to take my life more seriously, because I was just there to race and do sport and go and drive bobsleds at 145 k's an hour. And I still did a bit of that while my kids were young, but there was a point where I was like, well, now I have to actually be a real person and go get a job.
Yeah.
Right. And my wife had been pushing me to do that for a while, but she was very lenient. Yeah. And I think having them in my life meant that I had to shape up and become a real adult, which I'm still trying to figure out. I think everybody is. But it was the impetus for transitioning from being an athlete and living day to day and like a uni student to, I need to have a serious job. And
did you find that transition hard, shifting away from one identity to the next?
Sometimes it is. The goal setting is different. Well, not different in the process, but like the end goal. You don't have a day where you're going to go or a time when you're going to go and show everyone what you've been doing. It's less obvious. But as an athlete, I was always driven because I wanted to be good enough that someone would pay me to do it. and I never was. And now someone pays me to do something every day, so I must be decent at it. Kind of feels good, right, to get paid.
Yeah.
But I guess the other part of the transition that is, there's a lot going on in sport and research and different stuff. There's a lot of support for athletes as they come out of sport now from the AIS. And I know there's been some articles recently that there's not enough and everything. I kind of disagree, because if I was working at a bank and I left that job and went to another bank, it's not now the original bank's issue as to what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? You chose to be an athlete, deal with the consequences, and try and find the things that, like what we were talking about before, that you've learnt, the value you have from being an athlete, and try and apply that to the real world. But in saying that, there is some kind of weird effects that I did realize, and it took me a while to figure out what it was. But when I quit sport, I was like, cool, now I'm quit. I have a job, looking after my kids, done. And I probably didn't work out at all for like 3 months, maybe 4, other than just like recreational, like going to the beach and stuff. No actual working out. And I started to feel pretty weird, like in the head, in my body, everything was just off. And you know, there's a lot about mental health and things like that. It was probably it's in that range. And then so one day I was like, well, I'll just work out. I'll just try and work out and see if I feel better. And I started working out and I felt better. Then I was like, okay, work out more. Okay, I feel better. I wonder if I like start taking creatine again, because I took creatine consistently for like 15 years. I'll take that. Yeah, and I started feeling better again. So now I just treat myself like an athlete that has another job, and I train relatively hard.
Yeah.
Not as, like, I don't go to the athletics track anymore, but I go to the gym, work out at home in the mornings before the kids wake up, or go out on the street and do a sprinting session on the street. I just don't have time to get to the athletics track, but I'm working out a fair amount. I never thought I'd be the person that needed to work out when I retired. I thought I'd walk away from it and just go get a job, and that'd be sweet. But it turns out that my body's kind of addicted to it. I think that's the way I look at it, is that my body's used to functioning under that load.
Yeah, so when you kind of got to keep it up.
When you don't give it that load, it just doesn't feel right. So it's a balance. You don't want to give it too much load. But
that must be a common thing with athletes. Once they stop training at such a high intensity, they sort of start to come down off it. And I feel like even, you know, on a lower scale, like I swim 3 times a week. If I don't go on that one of those days, my body's on edge, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, move. Like, it's asking me, and it gives me all these signals. That's like, you need to go and do that, and you feel edgy if you don't, kind of thing. You get used to.
It's a bit too philosophical, I guess, for me sometimes. But when you think about what the human body wasn't designed to sit in an office or sit on a couch or whatever. It was designed to look for food and move and kind of a bit more nomadic, right? I'm not an expert in that either. But your body wasn't designed to do what we do in modern day life. So I think when you go to the gym and you look after yourself a little bit, you reap a lot of benefits mentally and physically from it.
No, I agree. Keeps your mind intact, keeps your body intact. You're going to live longer in the long run, I would imagine, from the time you put in now.
The one I always tell people is, oh man, I'm going to get this wrong, but your leg strength is inversely proportionate to your length of life or something like that.
Your leg
strength is inversely correlated to the length of your life. So the stronger your legs are, the longer you will live.
Is there science behind that?
Yeah, it's data. I'm not saying it right. I know that I'm not using the correct words, but basically the layman's terms is leg strength means you will live longer.
Is that because when you're older, you fall less?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And so then you don't have the time out of recovering. Your body doesn't get worse from not doing exercise. And you're not less likely to fall down a set of stairs. You're less and when you do fall, your bone density is higher because you've been doing weights training and stuff. so you're less likely to break something.
So leg day every day is the message, really.
Yeah. I'm just laughing at all those guys doing arms every day.
Yeah.
No, I if I go to the gym, I'm like, man, I need to do legs because that's the only thing I'm really good at. everyone looks at me in like the upper body stuff and they're killing me, even though I was a professional athlete. But let's go do some hamstring exercises, guys.
Yeah, never see him in there. So that's something that you're doing now. Sports, training, that's obviously things, competing, racing, all things you've been passionate about over your life. With that having changed, are there things that you are more passionate about now? Like, what's your kind of driving thing now? What's the big project that you're loving working on?
I guess my family is probably the main focus now and providing for them, because I didn't for a long time being an athlete. But what I get to do every day to provide for my family is also really attractive to me. Like I enjoy it. And that's just that I've taken two things that I knew a fair bit about and put them together and found my niche, and that is accessibility consulting. And that, in layman's terms, would be talking with architects, builders, project managers, and everything in the world of construction to provide better outcomes for people with a disability in the built environment. On a day-to-day basis, I'm helping those people in the construction industry to meet the minimum legislation required for a building to be built, whether it's ramps, stairs, lifts, door openings, spaces around doors so that they can be used, and all those things, even the tactile ground indicators, the things that are on the ground at the start of every set of stairs and on the bottom of every set of stairs and the top and bottom of every ramp. You'll notice them now when you go out there. Bumps, they're little plastic or metal bumps.
I know what you're talking about.
A lot of people are like, oh, that's for grip, right? And I'm like, no, that's so the vision impaired person using a cane knows that it's a caution, it's a warning.
I always thought it was to make skateboarders fall off their skateboards.
That too. The wheelchair, they're not as prized in the world of sitting in a wheelchair either, because they do the same thing to the wheelchairs as they do to the skateboards. So
the smaller wheels.
Yeah, the smaller wheel at the front of a wheelchair does not like them as much, but they're there so that vision impaired people have a warning that something is coming up. In Australia, we have two types. We have small circles, which you'll see all the time, and they are basically caution, but they don't tell you what the caution is. In Japan, I think there's like 9 different types.
Yeah.
But the circle is a caution. That could be there's a step, there's a ramp, there's a ledge. It also could be that the roof is less than 2 meters high. There's so many different things it can be. But the long ones, the sausages, are directional. And so if someone uses their cane to follow the directional sausages, they can find a place that they might be trying to get to.
Oh, wow.
So it could be directing them to a bus stop, for example. You would put the sausages from the edge where the bus stop is across the path that someone might be walking on. So when they hit it, the sausage is pointing towards the bus stop, and they can turn at that 90 degrees and follow it to the bus stop, for example.
So you go in and look at a space, or maybe look at some plans and be like, yeah, this looks good, but perhaps it's missing the directional sausage, for example.
Yeah, so first of all, we look at a set of drawings or a place and go, you've met or have not met the minimum criteria. So, okay, let's say they've got an accessible toilet, and it should be a certain size. It should have these fittings in it, this toilet seat, the handrails or grab rails, and the basin needs to be this high off the ground so that someone's knees can go underneath it if they're sitting in a wheelchair. We measure all those things and check that they get it. That would be, let's help you meet the minimum requirements. And then above that, still in the world of accessibility, but more towards the world of universal design, would be us trying to help them make the building even better.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of a really good example of universal design, but the countertops, right? If you arrive at a big building where there's multiple businesses upstairs, and you come in the door, and inside the door in the lobby, there's a counter with people giving you directions. That main desk.
Yeah.
Well, there's no requirement for that desk to be at a height for a person sitting in a wheelchair or a person of short stature. But all those desks are going to be really high, and there's probably going to be a computer screen on top of that desk, which is blocking the person standing behind it. There's no need for them to have such a huge screen in that space. They could have a much smaller screen that wasn't blocking them, so that someone with a hearing impairment can read their lips. Right? If you move that computer screen away. If you then also sit that person down and put them at a height that is at a person of short stature or sitting in a wheelchair, direct line of vision, then if those people have a hearing impairment as well, they can see their lips. It's also just nice to look straight at a person and not have to look up over a counter and yell what you need.
Yeah, true.
And so there's all these things that they're not legislation, they're not required by law, but there's a lot of things we can do that just improve the day-to-day life of not just people with a disability,
but anyone who turns up there too.
But anyone that turns up. And it's not making it any worse for anybody else.
That's right.
It's not detracting from anyone else's experience. Universal design is about finding the best outcome with the most effective outcome for the most amount of people, but also for the least cost, right? If you do it right the first time, you also save money because you don't have to remodel it later. And so there's an environmental impact of that as well, where you're not wasting materials.
Oh, yeah, true.
So there's a lot of really cool things. And we have, I think, in Australia, like it's about 18% of people who live with a disability. And then we have, I think, 20% of people, probably including that 18%, that live with a long-term health problem. Yeah. And then on top of that, we have our aging population. So when you start adding all those things together, we're talking about 40, 50% of our population that can benefit from us just thinking about design a little bit more.
Yeah, true.
And
it's more far-reaching than just disabilities. Yeah, wow. So you've actually managed to combine like a few of your different worlds and knowledges together. And I guess a big motivator for getting into that was having your family. You were like, oh, okay, I need to now switch to this role of being there for them, providing for them, doing this work. But you found something that brought all of your knowledge and skills together, and because of your career in Sprint, kind of led you into this space as well.
Yeah, so I got to hang out with all these people with different disabilities for 20 years of my career. I got to see them operate in different environments and built environments, different hotels, different gyms, different everything, how they use spaces. And then I also did 10 years for my 4-year degree of landscape architecture, so I understand drawings. And so as a disabled access consultant, I understand the plans and I understand what the intent behind the legislation is. Why are we providing 530 millimeters on the edge of a door? Well, that's so that someone that's missing a hand can step to the side and still operate the door.
Let's go into this final part of the podcast. This part's all about, it's kind of connecting you to the last guest and the next guest. And a little bit of just sort of rapid fire philosophy stuff, because I've come to realize lately, I knew it ages ago. I was so interested in philosophy, but I just was like, that's doesn't work at uni. Don't do that kind of basket. I was like, do something that will give you a job. And I'm sure that there's jobs that come from going through philosophy as well, or at least, you develop the skills and life knowledge to go and do what you want to anyway. But I've recently landed on it and I want to start engaging with it again. So I'm starting to be curious about people's personal philosophies. And we go through this a lot in the middle of the podcast anyway. But these can be short or long answers, as you please. The first question is, what is the most important thing you learned in life? Number one.
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Most important, I guess it's just that other people don't know what you're capable of. I'm not going to be the person that says you can achieve anything, but because you can't fly. But when someone says that you can't do something, that shouldn't be something that stops you from trying, because they're generally wrong. And you can use it as a motivation to prove them wrong.
And some days you never know who you're talking with or you're sitting next to. And I think about the classic, really old man usually, and you talk with them and they've had 90 years of experience and life things and learnings and stuff like that. And when you get chatting with those guys, they have so much to say and so much knowledge and so much experience and so many stories to tell. But without asking them, you never really know what they were capable of or are capable of still telling you about. And no, I agree with you for sure. You should never underestimate what you can do and what people can do as well.
There's so many people that get diagnosed with cerebral palsy at birth, and their parents get told, oh, they're never going to walk and they won't be able to talk and all this. But most of them end up way, way better than what the original diagnosis was. They're walking and talking, and that's just that for me. That's proof that you can't rely on someone else's opinion.
You've got to show it to yourself.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing someone can do with their time?
I think learning is pretty important, and continually learning. It doesn't have to be like a structured learning of going to university, but just being curious all the time. I am constantly distracted because I will see something on a television show or hear something on a radio or something, and I'll have to Google it and just check it, see what it is, and maybe learn a little bit about it. And doing that, I guess, took me where I went. That's how I got into bobsled. It's pretty much how I got into athletics as well, I guess, and how I got into access consulting as well. Is, hey, there's this thing. Okay, have a look at it. Okay, this is for me. This is not for me. Just constantly being a bit curious about things.
Yeah,
and I can see it in my kids as well. They're really curious. I think school and life in general just takes that out of you a little bit because you get tired.
Yeah.
But trying to keep your mind active enough and with enough energy to keep being the kid that wants to know.
Try to maintain that for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Saw a cool stat last night in my Spanish class, and it was like a rating of happiness percentages of people from some big survey, whatever. And it was talking about how people who were in that category of learning more, had educated themselves more, just generally overall, sort of sat in a higher category of general happiness. It wasn't perfect, but it was a higher percentage of the survey that came out that way. So
I guess it's tough because, if you think about the Matrix, ignorance is bliss. Right? If you don't know, you don't know that anything's wrong. So you either want to be absolutely ignorant of the outside world, or you constantly need to be learning something, I think.
Yeah, I mean, being learned and being informed, I think, are two very different things. Next one. What are your top tips for running a business? Reason I'm asking is I think I'll do it one day. If you had to bestow some knowledge on me about business from your own angle, what do you think would be the top?
Yeah, my wife runs Sidetrack Coffee, and we've had coffee shops in the past. I'll be honest and say I do a lot to help set them up with the design work and logos and getting them up and running. But she does all the day-to-day stuff up.
Yeah.
I work at the cafe one day a year,
Okay.
normally New Year's Day.
Yeah.
When it just makes sense to have us two working there. We don't have to pay someone heaps, and I'm off, so I'll work with my wife that day. But I think a lot of people get hung up on when they want to start a business that it's going to be really hard and only a certain group of people can do it, and they get stuck trying to begin. And the way that me and my wife looked at it when we were trying to start our first cafe was driving around and being like, well, look at that chicken shop, or look at that cafe. Surely if they can do it, we can do it. And I guess that's what I explained earlier with Bobsled as well. It was like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? You don't have to be the best businessman in the world. You just have to be competent. The system isn't there to try and punish you. Like the tax system and everything obviously is complicated, but it's not trying to make you fail. It might feel like it sometimes, but it's not trying to make you fail.
Yeah.
It's there as a set of rules, and you just need to understand it.
Yeah. So it's best to try and do your research, understand the rules of the game, and then realize that if you look around, there's loads of businesses that are open and running, and
they might not be doing really well, but they're at least scraping by. And if that's good enough, that for you,
give it a try.
Then give it a try. If you can scrape by on this many sales a day, and this many, and that's going to cover your costs, and you're getting an income from somewhere else, or you're supported, or you've got a bankroll, then you have enough time to figure out if you're going to be able to make it work or not.
Sound advice. I like this question. It hasn't always been on the show, but I like it because I feel like it helps me to connect with someone who I find interesting, or to be a mentor or a teacher or a coach or something. It helps me to connect with the person that they sort of learn everything there from. And so far it's been going really good. And I guess the question is, after your experience being on the show today, who do you think is someone in your life that would really enjoy being on the show, or you think kind of like fits that idea for you of being a mentor, or someone that's people look up to, or that would just be someone with nice knowledge that I would benefit from myself, or my listeners might benefit from too?
I'll give you two, and for two different reasons.
Yeah.
Or I can give you three, really.
Sure.
Obviously, you've met my wife. I think you planned to interview her anyway, so that's an easy question. That's an easy answer.
Yeah.
Born and raised in the Czech Republic, competed for the Czech Republic at the Olympics in 20-kilometer race walking. So, pretty exotic already. 20-kilometer race walking is not a sport we think about a lot. Czech Republic is not a country that we think about a lot. Just going to come with a very different set of answers, different perspective on life. She's been through the athlete thing, but also, at age, retired at age 25 or younger from professional sport, and came to live in Australia, from a town of 1,000 people in the Czech Republic.
Yeah,
and so she, able to uproot herself and live on the other side of the world, which not many people are capable of, I don't think. And then, so she's pretty interesting. Interesting enough for me to marry her anyway. But perspective-wise, also, I said when we were talking before the show that the boys that run the Not So Bad podcast, Pat and Matt, would be really interesting as well, because vision-impaired guys, and they talk about their life being blind. One blind from birth, one went blind in his teenage years, and they have a really interesting perspective. Life's not so bad. That's why the podcast is called Not So Bad. And and just understanding how they think about the world and how they perceive it is really different to how we perceive it. For instance, if you ask Matt what a red car looks like, he will think about how it feels, not how it looks, because he's never seen red. And that's just like crazy. That you can talk about a concept like red and someone doesn't understand it. And then, and they have really good actually ideas. They have really good examples of technology they use, apps and other technology that help them navigate the world by speaking to them and directing them. And there's apps that they can ring up and they can hold their phone camera up and people will read the signs and stuff for them and direct them through a train station, for example. It's just cool to know about. And then the third person, which would be real different perspective, is my coach, Irina. My wife would enjoy it, going back to my wife, because I'm always getting interviewed and she never was. Just because we were living in Australia and I was a successful athlete. She was very successful as well. Just in the Olympic world, it's very much more difficult to be successful. You're acting in in a bigger pool. But my coach kind of comes from the same situation where all her athletes were getting interviewed and talking, and she didn't get the opportunity to talk as much. And again, Ukrainian woman was in charge of the Ukrainian Paralympic team, and then decided to uproot her whole family and move them to Australia in 2003 or 4. And has been very successful. She's the most successful Paralympic coach we've had in that since, ever. I think she's got more than 50 international medals to her name from all her athletes.
Wow.
Like 22 of them are mine, but so yeah, I gave her a couple.
Nice.
And she has some of my medals actually at home. I gave them to her.
Yeah.
And so she just has a different perspective on life, and she's interesting. I think she can quote all of Kung Fu Panda, all of 1, 2, and 3 for you.
Oh, really?
And tell you how you should model your life on those as well.
Oh, really?
I think the key learnings are
philosophy of
the key
life.
learnings are there's no secret recipe, only you. What are the other ones? No secret recipe, only you. I think that's the first number of Kung Fu Panda 1.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3 have like a very similar theme, but there's like life lessons in them.
Yeah.
Even though they're funny.
100%.
And she uses them in life.
The turtle.
Yeah.
What's his name?
He's
real wise.
Yeah. She often quote the piece where the turtle uses his hands in the air to create a drop of water and then waters the plant and it flowers. And Jack Black, who's the panda, goes, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And he goes, "Inner peace." And she's like, you have to be comfortable with who you are and that you're prepared enough to go out there and compete.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable before you can be able to do it. If you don't believe it's going to happen, you can't do it.
That's right. It's a lot of belief plays into the success of professional athletes, right? Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, hopefully, I know at least one of those is planned already, so that's good. But I hopefully can reach out to those guys and get in touch with them as well. That would be lovely. The next part connects you to our previous guests, which they actually weren't our previous guests, but their question never got a chance to be asked because there was some weird kind of conjunction between, like, there was kind of like a skip in time between a few episodes and different people asked different questions. So this is from a passionate filmmaker from Hawaii. He's actually not from Hawaii. He's from mainland US originally, but he lives in Hawaii now. He's an amazing body surfer, amazing filmmaker, especially surf film. His name is Dominic, and he asked you,
if you knew that you were only going to be alive for a few more years, what would you change in your life and why?
It's a tough one because there's probably two answers to that. If I was like 10 years younger and I didn't have my kids, I'd be saying like, let's go harder on the sport thing and go and try and make the Olympics and go do some more bobsledding. But now that I've got my kids and life is very different, and not in a bad way. I'm not saying that that's changed my life in a bad way. It just has very much changed what I feel like I need to achieve in life on a day-to-day basis, but also long-term. I would say teaching my kids, I would spend more time trying to teach my kids what I've learned in my life, like what we spoke about today, trying to impart that. And it's hard to do with a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, but they understand a lot of the concepts already. They've watched me compete in big stadiums with full of people, and they get it. They get that stuff. And to the point where at the athletics carnival recently for their school, I went up to my son, who's in kindergarten, and his best mate were sitting next to each other just before they were about to start racing, and all the kids had their hats on. And I went up to them and I'm like, hey man, boys, turn your hats. Either take your hats off and leave them here, or turn them backwards before you race so they don't blow off and distract you. My son straight away picked up his hat and turned it around. And the other kid looked at me like, what would you know, idiot? Like, my son goes, well, I think he knows what he's talking about, right? Like, so being able to teach them that stuff and it would be like more of that stuff would be cool.
Wow. So faced with like your own mortality in a few little years, it becomes important to you to pass your messages on to the people that you created.
Yeah. And I think I had a friend who had cancer started in his eye and whatever they call it, metastasized, I think, into other parts of his body and ended up killing him. And there was parts where he was like, they were like, oh, you're in the clear and everything. But he kind of knew he was dying towards the end. And he sat down and wrote letters to his own son, because his son was, I think, about 4 or 5 at the time, and maybe a little bit older, 6 even. And he wrote a bunch of letters to his own son so that his wife could give them to him as he got older.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I think, like, at the time I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. But now I'm like, oh, I get it. He was feeling guilty that he's not going to be there to impart things that he's learnt.
Yeah, but I think that's like a very wise idea, not to try and tell them all information until it's age appropriate.
Yeah. Because
they won't understand it the same way as they will when they're older. And I suppose it wouldn't take a particularly long time to, I mean, there's so many things we learn in life, but it wouldn't take a really long time, I don't think, to come up with all of the things you'd like to say. I think we could conjure them up really fast.
Yeah, especially if you think, okay, well, it's his 10th birthday. Kind of what was I doing when I was 10? Yes, the world's different, but you're still learning the same lesson.
Because if you expand out our lives and we do make it to our elderly years, you can think of like any old people you know. I always feel like older people want to like write books. They want to like share their knowledge. They want to leave what they gathered in their minds here for the next generation. So it's quite interesting that faced with that coming up quickly, you would do the same, but in a shorter time. You'd gather your knowledge and pass it to someone so that this, I guess, in a way, like the story can carry on.
Yeah.
Interesting. And now you get to do it.
Now the hard question.
You get to ask. You get to ask any question you like. It can be serious. It can be funny. It can be deep. It could be shallow. Anything at all.
It's hard because we've spoken so philosophical that I feel like I have to be on that wavelength.
And don't assume that it's going to be your wife. That's
yeah. Like, oh, what would I like to
stitch her up?
Who's the hottest guy you've ever met? No. That's me. I guess because there was a point early in my athletics career where I was like, yeah, I'm one and done. I'll go to the Beijing Paralympics and that'll be it. I'll go get a real job and stuff. And it just morphed into 20 years from like basically 2 years into 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to hear from the next person what the point in their life where they think it changed so that it put them on the path to where they are now. Because that was definitely for me, like I was like, yeah, one and done. I'm going to one Paralympics. This is not a real thing. It's just this thing that I'm doing after school to fill in some time. And it became my career and more than half my life. So, and it then led to me meeting my wife because I was a professional athlete. She was a professional athlete. We met in the dining hall at the Australian Institute of Sport. I got to hang out with all these disabled people, learn about their disabilities, and then took my, landscape architectural knowledge and my knowledge of, or my lived experience with people with disabilities and turned it into my current career. I'm not saying that's what I'll be doing forever, but it definitely turned my where I was looking to somewhere else at that one point where athletics became a thing I was going to do.
So the final question, just to summarize,
so what is the one event or period in time, because that period was probably about a year for me, that really changed the outcome of where you ended up in life?
It's a great question.
I'm thinking of like the film director. He was probably a point where he learned about film, about how to do it. Yeah, spending time in the water, and he ended up in Hawaii. Like there's things that just influence people.
I'll share this with you because you haven't probably heard his episode, and he had this crazy thing happen where, like, he found this hand plane on the beach. It was just there on the beach, and by picking it up, he was quite a big guy at this point, and when he picked it up, he went out and started having a turn with it and playing with it, and just fell in love with body surfing in this moment, just by randomly, like he'd already done it a bit, but like it was like finding this hand plane that got him really engaged in doing it more. And he lost all this weight, got heaps more engaged with like surf film and film in the water, and just found this passion that helped him drop all this like crazy amounts of weight and stuff. And just like, that's what I mean. Like sometimes it's moments or things that just show up in your life that shift it completely.
Now I want to go get one of those.
Yeah, now you got to get a
actually
hand plane.
Because I suck at paddling. Like I can't surf, and I live at the beach, and I can't really use a bodyboard that well either because my paddling sucks. I'm going to blame it on my disability, but it's just because I have no paddle fitness, and I'm a sprinter. I last about 10 seconds. So three big waves come in, and I'm done. Like I'm back at the beach, and I can't make it out again. So, but I can swim and underwater. So maybe it's easier for me just to not take a board out and take a hand plane out and and have some fun.
Hand plane or boogie board if you got strong legs.
Yeah, but the boogie board, I can't paddle on it either. I suck. Like
maybe just the hand plane for the go, or none at all. That's another whole feeling in itself. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of all of the questions. I don't know if you have any questions for me or anything that you've randomly had curiosities, or if not, then we're absolutely all good to finish up there. And I want to say thanks for your time.
No, thanks for having me. I could do an episode where I ask you a lot of questions, I think. About what you do every day, as a teacher, and who you've spoken to and things like that, and what changed your life. But we don't have that much time. So maybe another day.
Well, Evan, thank you for coming on to Between Views. I appreciate you sharing your time, your knowledge, your information with me, and spending this Friday Eve, cups of tea and a couple of beers, and just getting down to life stories and knowledge that we have. It's brilliant. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the second part of our interview with Evan. Come along and join us next Monday as we connect for an epic episode about Olympic race walking and growing up in the Czech Republic with Evan's partner, Zuzana O'Hanlon. This is not an episode that you want to miss. Let us know what you thought about today's episode online or in the comments. Next, if you're a star, why not leave some for us wherever you're listening? This genuinely helps us get discovered by new listeners and is kind of like saying thank you in the podcast world. In other news, Between Views is always looking for collaborators. If you want to join the team and create something together, or if we can help you on your project, then please reach out on Instagram. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again and see you soon, Between Views.